How did a guy who spent his entire career teaching college kids about George Washington end up covered in alien blood, leading a guerrilla army through the ruins of Boston, with one son who might not be fully human anymore, and another who's killed more things than most adults? Yeah, that's the ride we're going on today. We're covering the entire story of falling skies, all the way from a mild-mannered history professor trying to keep his kids alive to a battle-hardened resistance leader who's gone toe-to-toe with not one, not two, but multiple alien species and somehow kept getting back up. And let me tell you, this show does not care about your feelings. So buckle up because it gets ugly. 6 months before our story starts, aliens showed up uninvited and threw the worst housewarming party in galactic history. They killed 90% of the human population, flattened every major city, shredded every military, fried the power grid, and essentially told the survivors that Earth doesn't belong to them anymore. No warning, no negotiation, just six-legged nightmares called skitters, giant robotic killing machines called mechs, and total annihilation. The humans who didn't die scattered into ragtag militias, civilians and soldiers held together by desperation and canned food, hiding in abandoned buildings and trying very hard to not get exterminated. The 2nd Massachusetts Militia Regiment is one of those groups, and its second in command is Tom Mason, a Boston University history professor who went from grading essays about the Revolutionary War to actually fighting one. His wife is dead. His middle son Ben was kidnapped and strapped with alien hardware that fused into his nervous system, and the only people standing between humanity and extinction are a sleep-deprived commander who's popping pills to stay functional, a criminal who knows how to build bombs, and a pediatrician performing surgeries she was never trained for. Let's get into it. Tom jolts his commanding officer, Captain Weaver, awake from a nightmare, which tells you everything about the state of humanity's leadership right now. Weaver, a grizzled, hollowed-out soldier running on no sleep and whatever medication he's swallowing when nobody's looking, drags himself upright because Commander Porter is back at base. And the news he's carrying isn't the comforting kind. It never is. The aliens have been redirecting resources into massive structures in every major city. Nobody knows what they're for, but Porter isn't waiting around to find out. In 4 days, every remaining resistance unit launches a coordinated strike. The problem? The 7th mass is completely wiped out. Nobody's heard from the 4th or 5th, and the 2nd mass can barely build a functioning explosive. So the fate of the human race is resting on a militia that can't even blow stuff up properly. Fantastic.
Porter needs Tom to scout the city and gather intel on alien movement around the structure.
But Tom's got concerns a lot closer to home. His oldest son, Hal, finds his brother Ben in the yard jumping rope, which sounds innocent enough, except Ben's been at it for 3 hours straight without breaking a single drop of sweat. The harness they pulled off his back didn't just leave scars, it left something else behind. Something nobody fully understands yet. Over in the lab, Pope, convicted criminal, former outlaw gang leader, and the absolute last person you'd want anywhere near explosives, takes one look at the 2nd Mass's bomb building plans and laughs in their faces. The guy knows demolition work. Nobody trusts him even slightly, but he did risk his neck to save the group's kids a few weeks back, so he's earned just enough goodwill to not be executed on the spot. While poking around salvaged mech parts, he accidentally fires one into the wall, scaring the hell out of Tom's youngest son, Matt. The kid runs straight to his dad, saying Pope knows how to kill skitters. Tom tells Matt to stay away from Pope. Matt will absolutely not be doing that. Dr. Ann Glass, the group's medic, and the closest thing this apocalypse has to a functioning healthcare system, examines Ben in the medical ward. She tests his pain threshold around one of the harness needles still embedded in his back and gets nothing. Zero reaction. The kid literally can't feel it. Another rescued harnessed boy named Rick is adjusting even worse. Barely verbal, completely detached, and telling Ben straight to his face that even though the harness was removed, the skitters haven't abandoned them. Ben insists he hates the skitters. Rick just smiles like he knows something Ben doesn't. That's not unsettling at all. A supply run to a local armory goes wrong when a kid named Jimmy compromises their position trying to save a dog from a mech. Because in the apocalypse, man's best friend will absolutely get you killed. Tom's team tries again the following night and walks directly into an ambush, not from aliens, but from a gang of armed outlaws led by Pope. This is the backstory. Before the 2nd Mass captured him, Pope ran his own crew of scavengers, and they did not play nice. His people kill a fighter named Click with crossbow bolts and tie up Tom's entire squad. Hal negotiates a deal to fetch weapons from the 2nd Mass in exchange for the hostages. Weaver flat out refuses to trade. Hal sneaks out anyway with Anne, who offers to treat Pope's wounded brother Billy. Pope leaves Billy, a thug named Q-Ball, and a woman called Margaret guarding the prisoners while he goes to rob the second mast directly, firing a flare to attract alien airships and forcing Weaver into surrendering food and ammunition at gunpoint. Real stand-up guy. But Pope's power play blows up in his face because Margaret has reached her breaking point. When Billy starts harassing Karen, Margaret puts bullets in both Billy and Q-Ball and frees every hostage in the room. She was never one of Pope's people. She was just surviving until she didn't have to pretend anymore. Tom's militia ambushes Pope during the retreat. Join or die, that's the offer. Pope picks neither, fleeing in a car while his own men get slaughtered by the alien ships he invited. Weaver catches him anyway. Pope becomes the second mass's most dangerous prisoner, and eventually, against everyone's better judgment, their most useful one. A surgeon named Dr. Harris arrives with a theory about removing harnesses safely. The needles fuse with the host's nervous system, and ripping them out sends kids into fatal withdrawal shock. Harris's idea is to cut the needles instead of pulling, sedate with morphine, and slowly wean them off the alien drug the harness pumps into their bodies. It's untested, it's desperate, it's the only plan anyone has. Tom launches a rescue mission at a hospital where harnessed kids are being held. Mike, Rick's father, spots his son and immediately breaks from the plan, because apparently nobody in this militia can follow an objective for more than 30 seconds, and Tom helps grab Rick. A mech blast knocks Tom unconscious, forcing the team to retreat and leaving Hal and Karen stranded at the hospital. Tom wakes up furious, drags a live Skitter back to base as the Resistance's first prisoner of war, and heads straight back for his boys, alone. Hal wakes up to something that will haunt him for the rest of his life. Harnessed kids are dragging Karen away. One of them is Ben. A Skitter lines up 5 harnessed children in front of a mech, points at them, and the machine guns them down. The message couldn't be clearer. Take one of ours, we execute 5 of yours. They let Hal walk so he can deliver that equation to the Resistance. Tom finds his son and understands the math immediately. They can't pick off kids one at a time. It has to be all of them at once. Harris performs the removal on Rick, cuts the needles, pumps in morphine, and the kid barely survives. But Rick wakes up not recognizing his own father, not wanting to. And that night, Rick and the caged Skitter open their eyes at the exact same time. The harness is gone, but whatever connection it created is still alive. Tom corners Harris about something personal. During the early days of the invasion, Harris left Tom's wife Rebecca to die so he could save himself. Harris finally admits it. He calculated that his own life was worth more than hers, so he ran. Tom has to stand there and swallow the fact that the coward who killed his wife through cowardice might be the only person who can save his son. That's the kind of impossible math the apocalypse forces on you every single day. Anne tries communicating with the captive Skitter using pictures of Earth and the galaxy. Harris takes a more visceral approach, drags in a dead Skitter's corpse, and shoves it in the prisoner's face. The creature goes berserk. At the same time, Matt and Uncle Scott pick up radio static on a hand-cranked receiver. The aliens communicate through radio waves, and their prisoner is broadcasting. Tom takes a supply team out, and Pope immediately escapes, because Pope is physically incapable of not causing chaos. He blows up a nest of sleeping Skitters under a bridge, purely for the thrill of it, which draws every alien in the area directly to Tom's squad. They get pinned down at a motorcycle shop by armed, harnessed teenagers firing real weapons. Tom refuses to shoot children. They escape, Die takes a round in the leg, and Tom kills the controlling Skitter on the way out, but he has to leave the harnessed teens behind. Can't save them. Not today, not like this. Rick wakes up at base with his cystic fibrosis completely cured. The harness fixed his body. It also erased his humanity. He doesn't recognize Mike, doesn't want to be human anymore. That night, the captive Skitter somehow wakes Rick from across the building, and the kid voluntarily reattaches the harness to his own spine. He tries to free the alien before Mike catches him. The Skitter speaks through Rick, first begging to be released, then begging to be killed. Mike rips the harness off his son by force. But the real horror isn't that the harness controls them, it's that part of Rick doesn't want it to stop. Hal and Maggie, Margaret from Pope's old gang, quickly proving she's one of the most lethal and resourceful fighters the Second Mass has, return from a scouting run with a bag of pharmaceuticals. The harness surgery needs drugs, and Anne makes it painfully clear that this is Harris's field, not hers. She wants Tom to understand that Ben might not survive the procedure. Harris never gets the chance to prove his theory. The captive Skitter kills him first, pins him against the cage, and crushes the life out of him. The only surgeon who actually understood harness removal is dead before the rescue mission launches. So Anne, a pediatrician who never signed up for alien surgery, now has to perform the most dangerous medical procedure any of them have ever ever attempted, on 6 kids, with improvised tools, alone. She earns her stripes before the mission even starts. She tasers the captive Skitter, drives a knife into its soft palate, the nerve center they discovered during dissection, and kills the thing quickly and quietly. Her hands are shaking when she pulls the blade out. She tells Tom she thought about her family when she did it. Then she wipes the Skitter's blood onto the missing persons board because she doesn't own a single photo, toy, or memento of her dead son Sam. That smear of alien blood is the only memorial she can give him. This show just does not let up. Hal pitches the craziest plan anyone has heard. Strap Rick's old harness to his back and walk straight into the hospital, pretending to be a harnessed kid. Weaver approves it because making yourself invisible to the enemy is the oldest trick in the book, and also because nobody has anything better. Tom hugs his son, gives him a pep talk, and watches Hal walk alone into a building full of Skitters. Every second of waiting feels like a year. Hal lies down among the harnessed children, fakes the vacant stare, waits for his moment, pulls a knife, and goes for the guarding Skitter. The harnessed kids attack him, still connected, still obedient to their captors, but Tom and Maggie breach from another entrance just in time. Maggie knows this hospital layout by heart because she was a cancer patient here at 16. She's been defying death since before the aliens showed up. They kill the Skitter, drag the kids out, and sprint them back to Anne. She operates on Ben first, blowtorch on the needles, morphine drip, and whatever hope is left in the room. The kids crash almost immediately. Blood pressure tanking, breathing failing, pulses going thread thin. Anne fights for every single one of them. She saves 5, 1 doesn't make it, but Ben does. Tom walks out of the operating room, looks at Hal, and says the words, "Ben's alive!" And for the first time in this entire story, Tom Mason's face isn't strategy or grief or barely contained rage. It's relief. Pure, unfiltered, father getting his kid back relief. All 3 of his boys under the same roof. Weaver watches from the doorway, happy for Tom, but the ghost of Sophia flickers behind his eyes. He tried to save his daughter too, he just didn't get the same ending. Anne collapses from exhaustion. Tom holds her hands and tells her she's the reason those kids are breathing. Maggie tells Hal the real reason she knows hospitals and pharmaceuticals so well. Cancer at 16, beat the odds, survived. Everybody in this show is dragging something heavy behind them. And behind all of them, Ben opens his eyes for the first time. The Mason family is whole again. The harness scars on Ben's back haven't faded. Rick drifts further from humanity every day, and somewhere in the skeleton of every major city on Earth, those tall creatures the Skitters bow to are building something nobody understands yet. Whatever's coming, a history professor and his broken little army aren't ready for it. But then again, they never were. The second mass is barely holding itself together, and the cracks aren't coming from the aliens, they're coming from inside. A couple named Eli's parents hold Anne at gunpoint in the medical ward, demanding antibiotics and supplies. Harris is dead, harnessed kids are sleeping in the same building as everyone's children, and some people have decided that staying with the resistance is a death sentence. They want pharmaceuticals to trade on the road. Eli's father seems genuinely sorry about putting a gun in a doctor's face, but not sorry enough to stop. Desperate parents do desperate things. That's going to be a recurring theme in this episode. Tom and Weaver chase the family down, and the standoff ends when an armed stranger appears out of nowhere and forces the father to surrender. His name is Terry Clayton, and he says he's from the 7th Mass. The news he brings is the kind that makes your stomach drop. The 7th Mass is gone, completely wiped out. Skitters grabbed the kids first, then mechs mopped up the rest. 8 fighters and a handful of civilians are all that survived, holed up on some abandoned farm. And the worst part? Terry says the Skitters are headed toward the 2nd Mass next. Terry claims Porter ordered the surviving groups to regroup and that everyone under 20 should be sent with his team to the farmland for safety. Tom doesn't love the idea of handing his kids over to a stranger, but the logic is hard to argue with. The children have become targets, and keeping them at base camp is painting a bullseye on the whole operation. The parents hold an open forum that nearly turns violent. One father pulls a weapon because he refuses to be separated from his daughter. Tom talks him down, reminding everyone that the real enemy has 6 legs and metal friends, not a different opinion about childcare. Ben, in the meantime, opens up to Matt about what being harnessed felt like, and what he says is chilling. He wasn't really thinking, it was like someone was thinking with him. He was terrified when they first caught him, but once the harness attached, it wasn't so bad. He says the Skitters almost felt like they cared about the kids. He admits he almost misses it. That's the kind of confession that keeps a father up at night. A mech attack hits the base that night, validating every fear Terry stoked. Jimmy gets cornered by 2 Skitters inside the building, and Weaver barely saves him in time. The hardened young soldier dissolves into a terrified child the second the adrenaline fades. Terry uses the attack as his closing argument. This is exactly how the 7th Mass started falling. Wave wave after wave until there was nothing left. Tom makes the call. The kids go with Clayton. The goodbyes are gut-wrenching. Tom kneels down with his 3 boys, puts his trust in Hal to protect the younger 2, and watches them walk away. Every parent in the second mass stands there watching their children leave, hoping they made the right choice, praying they didn't just make the worst mistake of their lives. They did! That night, at the ranch, Terry walks little Eli into the woods, where a harnessed girl named Megan is waiting. She promises to take Eli to his family. The boy resists. A mech shoots him. A Skitter hauls him away. Megan asks Terry if he's late and wants to know how many kids he's brought this time. Terry Clayton didn't save anyone. He's been trading children to the Skitters in exchange for his own group's survival. And the person who tipped him off about all the available second mass kids, the intel came from Pope, who Terry has locked up in a barn as a prisoner. Every single thing Terry told Weaver and Tom was a lie, designed to get access to their children. A history professor just handed his sons to a human trafficker working for aliens, and he doesn't even know it yet. The kids at the sanctuary play a pickup soccer game, which sounds wholesome until you notice the details. Jimmy won't pass the ball to Ben because the harness scars make him nervous. A girl named Tessa has a crush on Hal, but her father warns her not to get attached. The second mass kids are here for a specific purpose. Nobody's saying what that purpose is yet, but the walls are closing in. Mike starts getting suspicious when Lourdes finds a backpack belonging to Eli, the kid Terry supposedly never encountered. Hal notices armed guards on the rooftops watching the children instead of watching for Skitters. Something is very, very wrong with this sanctuary, and Mike decides to find out what. He breaks into the barn and discovers Eli's clothes in a pile. Terry catches him and, at gunpoint, tells the whole ugly truth. When the 7th mass fell, a harnessed girl came back with a message. The Skitters wanted kids. Deliver enough children, and they'd leave your group alone. So Terry built a business model around selling human children to aliens. He actually tries to appeal to Mike, thinking a father with a half-alien son would understand the logic of sacrifice. Mike's response is to get every second mass kid out of that ranch immediately. He stays behind to cover the escape, knowing full well it's a one-way mission. He tells Rick he loves him. He kills one of Terry's fighters. Then Terry sneaks up behind him. A gunshot. Mike is gone. A father who crossed every line to save his son, dead protecting children who aren't even his. Tom discovers the map Terry gave them was fake. No third mass, no returning escorts, no children where they're supposed to be. Everything Terry said was a lie. Tom is no longer a strategist or a second in command. He's a father whose kids are missing, and God help anyone standing between him and his boys. The second mass, children are exhausted and hiding in an abandoned house with Hal. Ben volunteers to run ahead for help since the harness side effects mean he doesn't tire like a normal person. For the first time, the thing that makes Ben different is the thing that saves everyone. He runs alone down the highway toward base camp. Tom finds Ben on the road, gets the full story, and sends him back with Dye to bring reinforcements. Tom walks up to Terry's men alone, unarmed, and offers himself as a hostage to spare the kids. It's the most Tom Mason move possible. A professor who read about heroic last stands his whole career, finally making one himself. Terry's men escort everyone back to the sanctuary, but before they can execute Tom, Weaver rolls up with the entire second mass at his back. Ben led them straight here. Terry's fighters surrender. Terry himself tries one final move, drawing a gun on Hal, and Tom shoots him dead before he can pull the trigger. A father protecting his son. No hesitation, no history lecture, just a bullet. Second mass holds a military funeral for Mike. Tom gives the eulogy. Rick receives the folded American flag, and what he says afterward sends a chill down every spine present. He tells Ben that killing is in mankind's nature, and that we, meaning the Skitters, would never do that. Rick doesn't consider himself human anymore, and the look he gives Ben suggests he thinks Ben shouldn't either. Pope, who escaped Terry's barn and actually came back to help save the kids, again, earns himself a position in the second mass kitchen. Not a thank you, not a handshake, a cooking job. Pope takes it, for now. Tom, Hal, and Weaver head into the city for the recon mission, and what they find reframes the entire invasion. The aliens are building their structure out of Earth materials, steel, copper wire, scrap metal, which means it can be destroyed. But that's not the real discovery. At the South Base, the 3 men spot creatures they've never encountered before. Tall, slender, humanoid, and the Skitters literally bow to them. These aren't foot soldiers. These aren't scouts. These are the ones giving orders. The invasion has a hierarchy nobody knew about, and humanity just dropped another rung on the ladder. A woman named Sonia emerges from a hiding spot, claiming she's survived alone in the city this entire time. She invites them into her apartment for tea. Tea! While the planet burns outside her windows. Tom and Hal go inside, and Sonia tells them she talked to the aliens through harnessed children. Their message was simple. simple. They want every human off the planet, permanently. Weaver, though, isn't listening to any of this. He steals a bike, disables the other two, and vanishes into the city. Tom and Hal chase him across Boston to his old neighborhood, where they find him sitting in his blood-covered former house, drinking in the dark. And the story that pours out of him is the kind that doesn't heal. His wife left him before the invasion. His youngest daughter, Sophia, was captured and harnessed. Weaver went after her, brought her home, tried to rip the harness off himself, and it killed her. He's been burying that guilt under duty and pills ever since. Tom refuses to leave him behind, not with the attack 3 days out, not with hundreds of lives depending on him. A mech shows up at the house because Sonia sold them out. She's been trading human locations to the aliens in exchange for not being alone. That's how far loneliness pushes people when civilization is gone. Through the front door, Hal spots his ex-girlfriend Karen, now harnessed and escorted by one of those tall humanoid creatures. He wants to save her right there. Tom tells him, not now. They feed Sonia false intel and leave her behind, a broken woman surviving inside a memory that doesn't exist anymore. Anne, in the meantime, has been keeping a secret. She preserved a dead Skitter and has been dissecting it with lords. And inside the creature, they found something that should terrify everyone, a harness. The same technology they strap onto human children, which means the Skitters might not have always been Skitters. They could have been something else entirely before they were converted. And if that's what the harness does to its host long term, then every rescued kid, especially Ben, is a ticking time bomb. Pope figures out something that actually gives humanity a fighting chance. Mech bullets are just human rounds rebuilt with alien metal. Melt that metal down, reload it into regular guns, and you can punch through mech armor like it's cardboard. He demonstrates for the whole group, and the armor shatters on impact. For the first time in 6 months, the second mass has a weapon that works. The only person who doesn't celebrate is Rick, standing off to the side, watching, listening to something nobody else can hear. The coordinated attack on the alien structures is approaching, and the second mass is falling apart from the inside. Die returns from a scouting run injured, confirming heavy Skitter and mech presence around the target. Weaver is popping pills like candy, uppers to stay awake, downers to sleep, and whatever else keeps the nightmares quiet. A soldier named Lieutenant Danner has positioned himself as Weaver's yes man, backing every increasingly erratic decision without question. Tom confronts Weaver about the pills. Weaver's response is to have Danner and Jimmy confiscate Tom's weapons and lock him up. Just like that, the second in command of the second mass is a prisoner of his own commanding officer. Anne and Lords explain to Tom that the medication Weaver's been taking causes extreme symptoms in high doses: paranoia, aggression, impaired judgment. The guy planning the most important military operation of their lives is chemically compromised. Hal and Maggie scout the area and confirm Skitters and mechs are everywhere. They report back, and Weaver declares the mission is still on. Hal, Maggie, Anne, and Jimmy band together to free Tom. Jimmy, the same kid who was too scared to pass a soccer ball to Ben a few episodes ago, now actively defies his commanding officer because he knows it's the right call. That's growth. Painful, ugly, necessary growth. The situation gets catastrophically worse when Die delivers news that Porter's outpost was hit. Porter is likely dead. The other units never checked in. Porter's last order before going dark was to abort the attack. The second mass is alone. No backup, no command structure. Just Weaver spiraling on pills and Tom locked in a room. Tom breaks free, confronts Weaver, and forces the truth into the open. Weaver pulls a gun on him. Tom doesn't flinch. He tells Weaver there's another way. Trust the people who've been fighting beside you this entire time. Let them decide. Jimmy steps out from behind cover, and seeing the kid he's supposed to be leading standing there watching him fall apart is what finally breaks through. Weaver lowers the weapon. He addresses the second mass and lays out the truth. Porter's orders were to abort. The other units are gone, and the attack is a long shot at best. He asks for 50 volunteers. Every fighter steps forward. Weaver tells Tom that Porter was smart to make him second in command and to keep the civilians safe while the fighters go to war. Ben and Scott, working on the radio frequency jammer, make a discovery that could change everything. Ben confesses to Scott that he can hear the alien transmissions. The harness didn't just leave scars on his body, it left a receiver in his head. He tells Scott the words that define his entire arc going forward. I don't know what I am. The fighters gear up and head out. Hal is going because of what the aliens did to his mother, to Ben, to Karen. Tom can only watch his oldest son march toward a battle he might not come back from. All he can give him is luck. Everything comes to a head. Rick attacks Scott, steals the radio component, and jumps out a window to rejoin the Skitters. Ben chases him, but can't catch him. Rick meets up with harnessed Megan and tells her everything. Troop positions, plans, all of it. The kid who lost his father to this war just handed the aliens the keys to the second mass mass's entire operation. Tom finds Rick alone and broken. The Skitters abandoned him after getting what they wanted. Rick finally admits he misses his dad. He was used, discarded, and thrown away by the aliens he chose over his own species. Tom brings him back, but the damage is done. The fighters reach the staging area, and Weaver delivers the reality check. They have to assume every other resistance unit is gone. The second mass is it. Retreat or fight. They split into 4 squads to hit each leg of the alien structure. Weaver sends Hal back to the school with orders to evacuate the civilians and live to fight another day. Hal wants to stay. Weaver tells him the resistance needs him alive more than it needs him here. Hope is more valuable than one more rifle. At the school, Ben uses his connection to the alien frequency to help Scott find the right signal to jam Skitter communications. The mechs advance on their position, and Ben sprints outside to hook the radio to the school's flagpole, using it as a giant antenna. Tom covers him with gunfire as Ben connects the signal. It works. The mechs freeze, stutter, and retreat. The thing that was done to Ben against his will, the harness, the connection, the alien noise in his head, just saved every life in that building. The kid who doesn't know what he is just became the most important weapon humanity has. Tom loads the jammer into a car, kisses Anne goodbye, the first real emotional admission between them, and tells her to watch over Ben and Matt if he doesn't come back. She says she will until he returns, because she's not letting him frame this as a farewell. He drives toward Weaver's position with a modified RPG that Pope rigged up as a parting gift. Even when Pope's not around, he's causing explosions. Tom finds Weaver alive and spots the alien ships returning, confused and afraid from the jammed signal. Weaver says the military already threw everything they had at those ships, and nothing worked. Tom doesn't care. He aims the RPG and fires. The shot hits a ship, which careens into the mothership and sets off a chain reaction of explosions that lights up the entire sky. A history professor just did more damage to the alien invasion than every military on Earth combined. Let that sink in. As they head back to the staging area, they find Karen standing in the middle of the road. A ship descends behind her. One of the tall humanoid aliens steps out. Karen, speaking for the aliens, says they didn't expect this level of resistance. They want to talk. Tom is furious. They want to negotiate now? After killing billions of people, after harnessing children, after wiping out civilization, now they want to chat because humanity finally hit back? Karen delivers the real threat. She says the harness is a process. Ben isn't free. They can call him back anytime they want, unless Tom comes with them willingly. Weaver tells Tom he can't trust them. Karen says they won't force him. They don't have to, because Tom Mason will always choose his children over himself. That's who he was when he was grading papers, and that's who he is now standing in front of an alien warship. Tom takes Karen's hand and walks toward the ship. Weaver watches the man who started this story as a basement-dwelling history nerd disappear into a column of alien light. The guy who taught about revolutions just became humanity's first hostage exchange, and nobody knows if he's coming back. 3 months. That's how long Tom Mason has been gone. 3 months since a history professor took a harnessed girl's hand and walked into an alien spacecraft to save his son. The second mass has been on the move ever since. Leaner, meaner, and running low on everything except grief. And Ben, the kid who used to jump rope for 3 hours without sweating, has graduated to jumping off rooftops and slitting Skitter throats with a knife. Whatever the harness left inside him, he's channeling it into pure rage. Weaver orders the group to cease fire and conserve ammo during a street ambush, but Ben spots a surviving Skitter and launches himself off a building to finish it personally. Hal chases after his brother because somebody has to keep this kid from getting himself killed. They hear another Skitter nearby. Ben shoots it. The bullet passes through the alien and hits the man wrestling with it on the other side. That man is Tom Mason. His son just shot him. Welcome home, Dad. The group rushes Tom back to camp, where Anne and Lourdes operate on him. And as Tom drifts in and out of consciousness, the 3 months he's spent away come flooding back in fragments. The tall humanoid aliens, the overlords, tortured him on the ship. They communicated through Karen, his son's former girlfriend turned alien puppet, who told Tom about a neutral zone where surviving humans could live in peace under alien supervision. Basically a concentration camp with better branding. Tom refused immediately and attacked a Skitter, which got him knocked unconscious. Real productive negotiation there. The overlords dumped Tom in a field with other human captives from the ship. A mech executed every single one of them, except Tom. They let him live specifically so he could tell other humans what he witnessed. A walking advertisement for surrender. Tom refused to play their game and started the long walk back to Boston. Along the way, he rescued a girl named Teresa from muggers, buried her murdered mother, and traveled with her until their paths split. it. She headed for the mountains. He headed toward gunfire. Because Tom Mason will always walk toward the fight, even when the smart move is running the other direction. Tom wakes up to find Anne beside him. She tells him she knew he'd come back for his sons. He tells her he came back for her too. The man who kissed her goodbye before driving toward an alien structure with an RPG is finally saying out loud what they both already knew. Tom reunites with his boys and greets the second mass, who are genuinely happy to see him. Everyone except Pope, who immediately tells Weaver that something about Tom's miraculous return doesn't add up. And honestly, Pope's not wrong to be suspicious. He's just also Pope, so nobody wants to listen. The question of whether Tom can be trusted eats through the second mass like acid. And the person most skeptical of Tom Mason is Tom Mason himself. The overlords let him go too easily. There has to be a reason. He voluntarily asks to be restrained while the group crosses a partially destroyed bridge, bound for his own safety and everyone else's. The guy literally ties himself up because he doesn't trust what the aliens might have put inside him. He's right to be paranoid. Anne discovers a probe buried inside Tom's body. They extract it and contain it in glass, but the thing sprouts wings and escapes into the night. Whatever the overlords planted in Tom was alive, and now it's loose. Comforting. Ben swims across the river to scout the other side and finds a signal tower broadcasting Skitter transmissions. He can hear it. The harness connection lets him tune into alien communications like a radio. He reports back about the tower, but keeps the part about hearing it to himself. The kid is sitting on a secret that could help or destroy the second mass, and he's too afraid of what it means to share it. A strike team, Di, Hal, and Maggie, pushes ahead to destroy the signal tower with their last rocket launcher. The timing is critical, because alien airships show up just as the second mass starts crossing the bridge. The team destroys the antenna, the airships lose their control signal, and they fly over the bridge without firing. The connection between the towers and the ships is confirmed. Knock out the signal, and the aliens go blind. But skitters and mechs are closing in from behind. Weaver orders civilians to abandon their vehicles and sprint across the bridge. The hospital bus gets stuck in the gap. Fighters rush to push it through as aliens bear down on them. Tom, still tied up in the back, convinces Matt to cut him loose. Tom mounts a machine gun on a car while a skitter charges him. Shots from behind drop the alien. Matt is standing there holding an assault rifle. The youngest Mason just saved his father's life. This kid went from being scared of Pope's explosions to gunning down aliens in 2 seasons. Tom clears enough enemies for the bridge to empty, but more are coming. The bridge is rigged with explosives. Tom is still on it. Jamil prepares to detonate. Weaver hesitates, and Pope, because Pope is always Pope, grabs the detonator and blows the bridge with Tom still running across it. The explosion sends Tom into the river. Everyone assumes he's dead. Hal is grief-stricken. Weaver starts planning a body recovery. Pope actually tries to apologize, which earns him a punch in the face from Hal. Then Ben hears something. A beaten, burnt, half-drowned Tom Mason crawls up from the riverbank. The man is indestructible, not because he's superhuman, but because he simply refuses to stop getting back up. The second mass welcomes him like a resurrection. The escaped probe, meanwhile, flies across the countryside and burrows into the left eye of the Redeye Skitter, the same alien that tortured Tom on the ship. Whatever information that probe collected is now in alien hands. Jimmy and Ben have been sneaking into the forest to hunt skitters on their own. The kid who was too scared to be alone during a night patrol 2 episodes ago is now running unauthorized kill missions with a boy who's half alien. That's either incredible character growth or a terrible idea. Turns out it's both. They ambush a skitter successfully, but when they go after a group of 3 using Pope's stolen ammunition, things go sideways fast. They kill 2, but the third is the Redeye Skitter, and it grabs Jimmy and hurls him into a tree branch that impales him through the chest. Redeye holds up its hand toward Ben, causing his spikes to glow blue, and walks away. It could have killed Ben. It chose not to. That's either mercy or a recruitment pitch. Ben carries Jimmy back to camp. Anne does everything she can, but the damage is catastrophic. Jimmy, the youngest fighter, the kid who went from crying after a skitter encounter to volunteering for night watch to hunting aliens in the woods, doesn't wake up. Cardiac arrest. Anne tries to resuscitate him and eventually stops. Ben stands there in silence, knowing this is his fault. Pope, being Pope, steals Jimmy's compass off the body. Tom confronts him, they fight, and Tom manages to swipe it back mid-brawl. Pope laughs and calls him a name because emotional maturity has has never been Pope's strong suit. Weaver gives Pope an ultimatum: stay and follow orders, or leave. Pope leaves. His gang stays behind. Anthony volunteers to follow Pope and keep an eye on him, which is the polite way of saying, make sure this maniac doesn't come back to kill us all. An ancient-looking airplane lands near the second mass camp, and a woman named Avery Churchill climbs out saying she's from the Continental Congress in Charleston, South Carolina. She claims there's an organized government, a military command, electricity, and hot water down south. Half the second mass thinks it's too good to be true. The other half is already packing. Weaver releases her, and the group makes plans to head toward Charleston. The second mass holds a funeral for Jimmy. Each person throws dirt on the grave. Ben, destroyed by guilt, returns the compass to Weaver and breaks down completely. Weaver, the man who killed his own daughter trying to save her, is the one who comforts him. Two people who understand what it means to lose someone because you tried too hard to fight back. As the second mass pulls out, Ben lingers at Jimmy's grave. The Redeye Skitter appears behind him. Its hand goes up. Ben's spikes glow blue. Hal rides up on a dirt bike and Redeye vanishes. Ben climbs on the back of the bike but takes one last look behind him. Something is pulling at him, and it's not grief. Matt gets used as skitter bait by two berserkers, and when Tom finds out, he tears into them so hard that Matt feels humiliated. The kid just wanted to be brave, and his dad made him look like a baby in front of the only people who treated him like a soldier. Growing up during an alien apocalypse means your father-son conflicts happen at gunpoint instead of over homework. Ben and Hal lose their bikes to a group of feral kids, Lost Boys-style survivors led by a teenager named Diego, whose girlfriend turns out to be Weaver's daughter, Jeanie. Weaver reunites with her, and for a brief moment, the man who carries Sophia's death like a stone in his chest gets to hold one of his children again. Diego and the kids take supplies from the second mass and head back to their hideout, only to find it trashed and their friends taken. The aliens are still harvesting children for harnessing. Diego storms out of a strategy meeting with Weaver because the kid doesn't do patience. He does action. He takes his group and Matt with them to raid a harnessing facility. Tom sends a rescue crew after them with no clear plan because there's no time to make one. They breach the facility and save Jean and Matt seconds before they're harnessed. Hal watches Ben interact with one of the harnessing creatures during the raid. Ben's spikes glow again, and this time Hal sees it clearly. Whatever connection Ben still has to the aliens, it's not fading, it's getting stronger. Jeanie leaves with Diego afterward, choosing to hide out with the Lost Boys rather than stay with the second mass. She leaves Weaver a note. He reads it alone. The man found his daughter and lost her again in the same week, and this time it was her choice. The episode opens with a group of skitters on a rooftop, howling at the rising sun. Ben is standing among them doing the same thing. Let that image sit for a second. A human teenager, howling alongside the aliens that enslaved him, like he belongs there. Whatever line separates Ben Mason from the skitters is getting thinner by the day. Hal tells Tom about Ben's glowing spikes at the harnessing facility, but makes his dad promise not to push Ben about it. An explosion nearby sends Tom to investigate, and what his team finds makes zero sense. Dead skitters everywhere, killed by mech fire. The aliens are attacking each other. In the wreckage, Hal discovers not Ben, but Rick, alive and disoriented. Rick says Ben was at the battle and is out there somewhere, badly injured. Weaver authorizes a search party with Rick as a guide, and they find Ben in an abandoned building guarding the Redeye Skitter, the same creature that tortured Tom on the ship, impaled Jimmy on a tree branch, and has been making Ben's spikes glow blue at every encounter. Tom wants to kill it. Every instinct in his body is screaming to put a bullet in this thing, but Redeye communicates through Rick and says something that stops Tom cold. Torturing Tom on the ship was the only way to keep him alive. Redeye released Tom when he could have let the overlords execute him with the other prisoners. The torture was cover, protection disguised as cruelty. Tom brings Redeye back to base, alive, because information is worth more than revenge right now. He's furious with Ben for hiding the secret communications with the Skitters, but Ben fires back with the full picture. Redeye isn't just a rogue alien, he's the leader of an underground Skitter resistance. The overlords didn't create the Skitters, they conquered them. Redeye's homeworld was invaded 100 years ago. The overlords ravaged his planet, enslaved his species with the same harness technology they're using on human children, and turned an entire civilization into obedient foot soldiers. Sound familiar? But the harnesses aren't perfect. Over a century of use, they've degraded. Some Skitters have regained their free will, their individual identities, their ability to think without the overlord signal drowning out everything else. Redeye is one of them. The problem is that it's never happened in large enough numbers to mount a real resistance. Every Skitter who shows signs of independent thought gets executed by the overlords. Then the overlords came to Earth, and they made a mistake. They expected humanity to break. Every other species they'd conquered rolled over eventually, submitted, surrendered, accepted the harness. Humans didn't. Humans kept fighting, kept adapting, kept hitting back in ways the overlords never anticipated. A history professor blew a hole in their mothership with a homemade RPG. A teenage girl shot an alien off her father's back. A pediatrician killed a skitter with a kitchen knife and smeared its blood on a bulletin board as a memorial for her dead son. The Skitter resistance has been watching all of this, and for the first time in 100 years, they believe a real fight is possible. Redeye isn't asking Tom to trust him. He's telling Tom that humanity is the reason his people finally have hope. And somewhere outside that building, a death squad is already on its way to silence Redeye permanently. Because the overlords don't tolerate rebellion. Not from humans, not from their own slaves, not from anyone. Hal and Maggie find a mass grave while on patrol. Dozens of naked, de-harnessed children dumped in a pile like garbage. And in the middle of all those bodies, one survivor, Karen Nadler, Hal's ex-girlfriend. The girl who was dragged away by harnessed kids back in season 1. The girl he's been carrying guilt about ever since. He rushes her back to camp, and Anne starts treatment immediately. But something about Karen's recovery doesn't add up. She's displaying increased strength, inhuman agility, and hearing that no de-harnessed kid has ever shown before. She plays Hal and Ben against each other like a chess master, targeting Hal's lingering feelings for her and weaponizing Ben's insecurity about being trusted. Maggie sees through it instantly and confronts Karen directly, ordering her to leave. Karen's response is to psychologically gut Maggie, telling her she enjoyed being used by Pope's gang, that she doesn't deserve Hal, that she's nothing. Then Karen disarms Maggie like she's swatting a fly, throws her against a wall hard enough to tear open her stitches, and leaves her bleeding out on the floor. Karen grabs Ben and they escape to the rooftop. Hal catches them and holds both at gunpoint, begging them to come back. Ben apologizes, puts Hal in a chokehold, knocks him unconscious, and jumps off the roof with Karen. No injuries from the fall. These two aren't fully human anymore, and the gap between what they are and what they used to be is widening fast. Pope, who's rejoined the group after barely surviving a Skitter attack on his own, drops the bomb that changes everything. He encountered Karen 2 days ago with an overlord. She reached into Pope's mind and forced answers out of him telepathically. The overlords aren't looking for the second mass, they're looking for Ben. Through him, they want information about the Skitter rebellion. Maggie is bleeding on the floor. He storms to the roof. Hal is unconscious. Tom stares into the woods where his son just disappeared with an alien spy wearing his ex-girlfriend's face. Karen walks through the forest with Ben, probing him for everything. Where the rebel Skitters are hiding, how he met Redeye, their locations, their numbers. Ben answers because he trusts her. Then Karen springs the trap. She was never looking for sanctuary. She was looking for him. The second mass follows their trail and ambushes the alien escort in a firefight. Karen slips away, but Ben rejoins his family. And Tom pulls off something nobody expected. He captures a living overlord, an actual Espheni commander in chains inside their camp. Weaver, freshly recovered from his harness infection thanks to Lord's improvised blood heating treatment, resumes command and has the overlord locked in the same holding area where Karen was kept. Using their most valuable prisoner as leverage is the only card they've got, because the aliens have surrounded the hospital and they're not leaving without their boss. The siege turns ugly fast. Mechs burst through the garage. Tom destroys one by shooting oxygen tanks, but the explosion buries Anne, Lords, Matt, and Jamil under rubble. Karen raises a white flag and calls for negotiations, then executes a captured second mass fighter by having a mech gun him down in front of everyone to prove she's serious. Give up the overlord or more die! Inside the hospital basement, the situation is worse than anyone realizes. Lourdes finds Jamil wounded and bleeding, desperately holding a door shut. He tells her he loves her. She says it back. Then spider-like creatures start crawling out of Jamil's mouth. Anne orders a retreat, but has to physically drag Lourdes away from the man she loves as parasites pour out of his body. They lock themselves in the blood lab. Lourdes is so shattered she's essentially given up on living. Matt, the youngest Mason, the kid who used to be afraid of Pope's explosions, volunteers to crawl through the air vents for help. This family just keeps asking more from their children than any child should ever have to give. Ben confronts Tom and says what everyone's been thinking. This is his fault. He's the reason the overlords found them. He's the reason people are dying. He needs to leave when this is over. Tom refuses to accept it. He will not sacrifice his son. Not to the aliens, not to the war, war, not to logic. A history professor who's read about every general who ever made the cold strategic choice is physically incapable of making that same choice when it's his own kid. Ben is gone. He left the second mass to join the Skitter rebellion, and Tom let him go because holding on any tighter would have crushed them both. The convoy pushes toward Charleston, carrying that absence like dead weight. Matt hands Tom a handwritten will, because this 13-year-old has internalized mortality to a degree that no kid should ever have to. Tom tells him nobody's dying. He doesn't believe it either. Hal and Maggie are running ahead in a scout truck with Pope riding the flatbed and being exactly as insufferable as you'd expect. Maggie's been carrying a secret, and Pope, who has zero emotional intelligence but laser-sharp instincts for weakness, keeps pushing her toward the truth. She finally tells Hal everything. The cancer at 16 was just the beginning. She became a heroin addict afterward, started breaking into houses with her boyfriend to fund the habit, got caught, went to prison, discovered she was 3 months pregnant. She carried the baby to term and never saw him again. Maggie's entire life has been one impossible situation after another, and she's still standing. That's not resilience. That's something beyond it. The convoy picks up a harnessed little girl named Jeanie, whose harness was knocked loose by their truck. She seems sweet until she starts talking about how much she loves her Skitter guardian and misses her scaly brother, Tyler. Matt bonds with her because Matt bonds with everyone, and she escapes when her harness reactivates, overpowering adults twice her size and vanishing into the woods. The harnessed kids aren't victims anymore. There's something else entirely. Tector, a fighter Weaver's been suspicious of, finally comes clean about his past. He was a Marine. His squad got ambushed and killed because of his failure. He doesn't want to go to Charleston because he can't face being in a military structure again after what he did. Weaver tells him the deaths weren't his fault. Then, Tector slams the brakes. They've arrived at Charleston. It's destroyed. Rubble and ash where a city used to be. Every dream the second mass carried for months, electricity, hot water, safety, civilization, dies in the time it takes to look out a windshield. Tom loses hope completely. Anne tries to comfort him, but there's nothing to say. Weaver, spurred by Tector's confession, gives a speech about how the second mass will build what they expected to find. They'll become their own Charleston. Then, soldiers emerge from the woods. The 1st Continental Army, led by Colonel Porter, the commander they all thought was dead. He hands Weaver real strawberries, tells Tom there's a legend building around him, and reveals that Charleston is more than meets the eye. The city above is destroyed. The city below is thriving. Hal, Maggie, and Pope arrive too, having run into Porter's patrol. The Mason family expresses faith they'll see Ben again. And for the first time in a very long time, hope isn't just a speech. It's strawberries and a staircase leading underground. Porter leads the second mass into an abandoned shopping mall and down into a massive underground complex, a functioning city with a buffet, electricity, and hundreds of survivors. The remaining members of the second mass walk down a broken escalator to applause from the people below. Tom offers his hand to Anne, and they walk toward actual food. Weaver reunites with Jean. For about 5 minutes, everything feels like it might be okay. It's not. Tom's old professor, Arthur Manchester, has been building a government down here, and his vision of civilization involves surrendering weapons, staying underground, and pretending the war above doesn't exist. The second mass is ordered to forfeit their firearms, which nearly starts a riot until Tom and Weaver talk their people down. Anne reports to Tom that the people in Charleston seem too comfortable, too settled, too willing to hide. She's right. Manchester wants a utopia. Tom wants a fight. Those two things cannot coexist. The political situation deteriorates until General Bressler overthrows Manchester and takes military control of Charleston. The civilian government collapses, and Tom, the history professor who's read about every coup in human history, finds himself watching one happen in real time, in the last functioning human city on Earth. Bressler wants nothing to do with the Skitter rebellion. Bressler agrees to let them go, then secretly orders his soldiers to attack the rebel Skitters the moment the second mass leaves, because betraying your own allies during a war for survival is apparently a leadership strategy now. Anne is packing for the mission when she vomits. Lourdes asks if she's told Tom she's pregnant. Hal sneaks out to find Ben at the rebel camp. The two brothers face each other, and Hal does something he's never done. He apologizes, not having his back when the harness scars made everyone else look at him like a monster. Ben accepts. Hal asks him to come home. Ben says he already is home with the Skitters. Hal hugs him and walks away. Two brothers who started this show as normal kids fighting over the remote, with or without a prayer. Tom, Ann, Weaver, Hal, Maggie, Ben, Di, and the Berserkers infiltrate the Asfini facility through a cave passage. They start planting explosives and walk straight into an ambush. Skitters pour in from every direction. Di is killed in the firefight. Hal and Maggie are subdued. Pure psychological warfare. Hal falls unconscious. She tortures Weaver. Then she turns to Ann, pauses, senses something, and a dying rebel alien watch. That's about as far from a lecture hall as a human being can get. Karen tells Tom he'll never win and escapes by scaling the wall like a skitter. Redeye holds Tom's hand and speaks. Tom tells her, "If there's any future for us, for any of us, how can we not?" They embrace. Hal wakes up alone in his room. He looks in the mirror. Everyone runs outside to see dozens of drop pods raining from the sky like meteors. A heavily armored alien emerges from one, retracts its visor, and smiles. 7 months ago, armored aliens dropped from the sky in pods, and the second mass had no idea if they were about to get rescued or exterminated. Turns out, rescued. The Vulm, led by a soft-spoken alien commander named Cochise, have been fighting the Asfini across multiple planets for centuries, and they've brought weapons, technology, and something humanity hasn't had since the invasion started: a fighting chance. In 7 months, the second mass has gone from hiding in basements and scrounging for bullets to launching coordinated military assaults on Asfini mining operations. And the guy giving the orders? A history professor who now rides into battle on horseback like some post-apocalyptic George Washington. Tom Mason got elected president of the new United States. Let that sink in. The man who used to grade term papers now runs what's left of the country. The season opens with the second mass hitting an Asfini mine, where harnessed kids are being used as slave labor. Matt plants alien charges. Ben and Denny, a de-harnessed girl who's become Ben's battle partner and closest friend, rappel down cliffs to engage Skitters. Pope and his berserkers roll in with guns blazing. Maggie and Hal provide vehicle support, though Hal's firing from a wheelchair-mounted turret because his legs stopped working 7 months ago. The rescue goes sideways when 2 megamechs, massive upgraded killing machines, rise from behind boulders in a pre-planned ambush. Somebody told the Asfini they were coming. The second mass has a mole. Paintface, the new leader of the Skitter rebellion who replaced Redeye, charges in with rebel Skitters to turn the tide. Tom and Cochise finish the job with Vulm energy weapons, but the ambush confirms what everyone feared. Someone inside Charleston is feeding information to the enemy. Tom assigns Arthur Manchester to investigate. Manchester narrows his suspect list from 50 to a dozen and is about to brief Tom when Ann goes into labor. Before he can reveal the names, an unseen visitor enters his office. Manchester isn't surprised to see them. "So it's you," he says. Then the mole shoots him dead. Tom and Ann's daughter Alexis is born. Tom mourns Manchester at a public forum while welcoming his newborn. Pope watches the speech with visible contempt because Pope has never met a moment of unity he didn't want to ruin. But the real nightmare is happening to Hal. Every night, Karen visits him in dreams, walking through the forest, kissing him, telling him the probe she planted in his brain is why his legs don't work. He's been fighting the connection subconsciously, and the paralysis is the cost of resistance. She climbs on top of him in the dream while her alien spine glows. Hal wakes up to find his boots in the back of his closet, covered in mud. He's been sleepwalking. Karen is pulling his strings, and he doesn't even know when he's awake or when he's hers. Ann wakes in the middle of the night to find newborn Alexis sitting up in her bassinet, smiling. A baby that's hours old, sitting upright and smiling at her mother. Tom and Cochise show Weaver a secret underground tunnel where the Vulm are constructing a weapon the size of a building. Cochise says it will end the war. Weaver doesn't trust the Vulm and warns Tom they have no idea what these aliens will do once the Asfini are beaten. Tom compares it to Roosevelt and Churchill working with Stalin. You don't have to like your allies, you just need them to help you survive. The history professor is still teaching lessons. He's just applying them to the apocalypse now. Ben and Denny discover a nuclear reactor the Asfini are using to fuel every mech and beamer on the East Coast. Harnessed kids are working inside and dying from radiation poisoning. Their bodies barely look human anymore. The second mass plans to destroy the reactor, but the mole leaks their strategy. Weaver's assault team walks straight into an ambush, exactly as planned. The frontal attack was a decoy. Tom took a separate squad with Maggie, Anthony, Lars, and agoraphobic scientist Dr. Kadar to hit the reactor from an unguarded side. Kadar hasn't been above ground in months and is barely functional outside his basement, but Marina Peralta convinces him that children are dying and he's the only one who can stop it. Tom's team gets ambushed by advanced harnessed kids inside the facility. Lars takes a brutal beating. Kadar's glasses break, so Tom has to shut down the reactor himself under Kadar's verbal directions. Anthony plants charges. The reactor goes up. Hal saves Weaver's team on the other flank. Mission accomplished, but Weaver lost men, and Pope points out, correctly, that humans are sacrificing themselves while the Vulm sit in their underground bunker doing nothing. Lars is dying. Harness fluid has spread through his entire body and organs. He gives Maggie his dog tags because she's the only family he has left. Anne hides her growing terror about Alexis. The baby called her Mama at a week old, crawled under a bed on her own, and propped herself up smiling. Matt apologizes to Anne for telling her she's not his mother. She forgives him immediately because Anne Glass has been forgiving people since the world ended. That night, Maggie wakes up to find Hal gone. She discovers him sleepwalking in the woods outside Charleston. When she snaps him out of it, his legs buckle immediately. He can only walk when Karen is driving. Behind a tree, Karen and a Skitter watch them leave, the puppet master checking on her puppet. A sniper attack on the Charleston perimeter turns the season sideways. The shooter isn't a Skitter or a mech, it's a human woman in tactical gear using military equipment. Crazy Lee takes a bullet to the chest and falls backward onto a piece of rebar that curves through her brain and out beside her ear. She can't feel it. She doesn't even know it happened. Pope realizes the injury is fatal the moment he sees the exit point. There's nothing anyone can do except be there while she dies. The sniper is captured and reveals herself as Lieutenant Catherine Fisher, sent by President Benjamin Hathaway, the actual pre-invasion president of the United States, who is apparently still alive and running a functional government somewhere. Fisher was ordered to infiltrate and attack Tom's group because Hathaway's people view the Charleston resistance as a rogue operation. Humans fighting humans while aliens occupy the planet. Some things never change. Anne's situation with Alexis escalates from unsettling to horrifying. She tries to prick the baby's foot for a blood test. The baby says don't and pulls its foot away. A newborn, saying words, pulling away from a needle with intention. Anne looks through her microscope, hears Mama behind her, turns around and finds Alexis standing and smiling. Anne collapses behind the counter in a fetal position. Lords finds her and reports to Tom that Anne may be having a psychotic breakdown. Tom confronts Anne and she tells him the truth. Alexis might not be human. Tom doesn't believe her. He thinks she's cracking under stress. The one person Anne needs to trust her thinks she's losing her mind. Hal reveals to Maggie that he's been visiting Karen in the forest at night, that she controls him through the probe, and that he might be the mole. He wants to leave Charleston to protect everyone. Maggie refuses to let him go. Every relationship she's ever had ended with someone walking away, and she's done with that pattern. She tells him they'll figure it out together, but he needs to be absolutely certain before telling anyone else. Crazy Lee dies in the hospital with Hope beside her. Her last word is his name. Her hand slides down, revealing a charm she always carried. Hope gives it to Matt, hangs it around the kid's neck, and walks away holding back tears. Hope tells Tom that Crazy Lee's death is his fault. Tom says, "You're right," and has nothing else to offer. Because sometimes the president of the new United States doesn't have an answer. Sometimes the history professor is just a man standing in a hallway with blood on his hands. Tom gives a speech at the Liberty Tree Memorial. He ditches his prepared remarks and speaks from the gut. Nothing has changed. People are still dying for freedom, and tonight they'll write the names of everyone they've lost on the memorial. Hal spots a moment to tell his father about the probe. An explosion cuts him off. Esfini beamers streak overhead on a bombing run. Charleston erupts into chaos, and baby Alexis watches the fighter jets fly over and smiles. Tom brings Lieutenant Fisher to watch the second mass fight alongside the Vulm, hoping to convince her that the alliance works. She's impressed enough to arrange a face-to-face meeting with President Hathaway via shortwave radio. Hathaway wants to meet in person, which means flying, and the only available plane belongs to Pope. So Tom, Pope, General Bressler, and Cochise climb into Pope's ancient aircraft to meet the actual president of the United States. Weaver and Marina cover for Tom's absence so the mole doesn't catch on. Anne runs a DNA test on Alexis. She takes the results to Dr. Kadar, who confirms what Anne already knew. Alexis's DNA isn't human. It's mixed with alien DNA. Kadar wants to tell everyone. Anne hits him over the head with a wrench, grabs the sample, drugs Lords' drink to knock her out, and flees Charleston with her baby. A mother protecting her child from a world that will destroy it if they find out what it is. Anne Glass went from pediatrician to fugitive in one night. Tom meets Hathaway, who is skeptical of the Vulm until Cochise tells him about his homeworld, a place he'll never see again, a flower that blooms when the weather warms. Cochise fights so that someday his children's children might see it. Hathaway is moved. But before the alliance can solidify, Esfini aircraft attack. Hathaway's plane is shot down. Tom's plane crashes in the forest, and outside Charleston, a Skitter and a harnessed child corner Anne and Alexis. Alt-Hal, the eye-worm personality controlling Hal's body, is there too. The harnessed child acts like she already knows the baby. Karen has been expecting Alexis all along. Ben decides to keep his spikes despite the risk they might kill him in a few years. The enhanced abilities they give him are too valuable to the fight. Hal stares at his reflection and has a full conversation with his alter ego, Evil Hal, who tells him that every time he visited Karen, every time he lied, he did it because he wanted to, not because he was forced. Evil Hal takes control. The kid who used to steal bikes and kiss girls at parties is now a sleeper agent with an alien parasite running his brain. Tom and Pope survive the plane crash. Bressler doesn't, impaled by a tree branch on impact. The two men who have hated each other since the day Pope tried to kill Tom are now stranded in the wilderness together, hunted by Skitter patrols. Pope convinces Tom to wait until sunrise before moving. They camp, and for the first time in 3 seasons, these two actually talk. Not as enemies, not as reluctant allies, as fathers. Tom's dad was a drunk. Pope went to prison for accidentally killing a man while defending his son. Two completely different people shaped by the same thing: the desperate need to protect their kids in a world that keeps trying to take them. Morning comes, and they get into a brutal fistfight, because of course they do. The noise attracts skitters. They kill one together, escape by jumping off a waterfall, and Tom twists his ankle on the landing. He tells Pope to leave him. Pope does. Then Pope comes back. Because apparently even John Pope has a line he won't cross, and leaving the father of 3 kids to die alone in the woods is on the other side of it. The search for Anne comes up empty. Weaver takes a team including all 3 Mason boys and Maggie into the field, but the Skitters have already captured Anne and Alexis. Ben plans to deploy rebel Skitter spies to locate them. Alt Hal tags along with the search party, pretending to care while feeding information back to Karen through the probe in his skull. The enemy is literally riding in the same vehicle as the people searching for his victims. Marina goes behind Tom's back and has Dr. Kadar examine photos of the secret Vulm weapon. Kadar figures out the device is drawing far more power than it should need, more than any weapon logically requires. Whatever the Vulm are building underground, it might not be what they told Tom it is. The alliance that's been keeping humanity alive might be built on a lie. Tom hallucinates in the forest, gets ambushed by Skitters, and Pope saves his life again. They make it back to Charleston. Tom wakes up 2 days later, and the first thing he says is, "Where's Anne?" Weaver tells him she's missing. The man who started this season as president, with a newborn daughter and a functioning alliance, is now bedridden, wifeless, and running out of people he can trust. The Asfeni have a mole in his camp. The Vulm might be hiding something. His oldest son is a puppet, his baby daughter has alien DNA, and the woman he loves vanished into the night with a wrench and a secret. The history professor used to teach about how civilizations collapse. Now he's living inside one. Tom wakes up in the hospital, learns Anne and Alexis are missing, and meets with Paintface, who confirms Karen is holding them. Tom is ready to tear Charleston apart to go after them, but Weaver talks him down. Give the rebel Skitters 24 hours to gather intelligence on Karen's location. 24 hours of a father sitting still while his family is in enemy hands. That's not patience, that's torture. Hal doesn't wait. Evil Hal, the eyeworm personality, makes his move. He drives a Humvee into Marina, knocks her to the ground, and drags Tom at gunpoint into the vehicle. Maggie opens fire with a .50 caliber, flipping the Humvee. Hal hauls Tom into a building and holds him hostage, while the entire second mass surrounds the structure, trying to figure out how to save their president without killing his son. Pope, being Pope, starts taking bets at the nest on whether Hal lives or dies. Weaver kicks the berserkers off the perimeter for engaging Hal and tries negotiation instead. Ben, Maggie, and Matt go behind Weaver's back and find another way into the room. Tom tries to reach the real Hal by pulling up memories. His mother's love, his bravery as a soldier, the person he was before Karen crawled into his brain. It works just enough to make Hal panic. He turns the gun on himself. Ben crashes through a door behind him, and the family tackles Hal before he can finish it. The bullet grazes his head, close enough to kill, close enough to save. Paintface provides a hunter-killer device, Skitter Rebellion technology designed to seek and destroy eyeworms inside a host. The catch that makes every decision in this show feel like a coin flip between salvation and murder: if there's no worm inside, the device kills the patient instead. Tom has to decide whether to use alien technology that might cure his son or might stop his heart. Marina tells him, "Death is not the worst of all evils." Tom gives the order. Lord sends the hunter-killer into Hal's body. Painful moments pass. Hal flatlines. Lords resuscitates him. He wakes up with Maggie and Tom beside him and says he doesn't remember anything since the previous week. The eyeworm is dead. Hal is free. The kid who was Karen's puppet for an entire season is finally himself again. Tom resigns as president, Marina takes over, the Mason family, all of them, leaves Charleston to find Anne and Alexis. A history professor who became a president is now just a father again, walking away from power because his family matters more than his title. That's been true since episode 1. The Masons travel at night toward the rebel Skitter rendezvous. Ben questions whether they should even return to Charleston after finding Anne. A wounded rebel Skitter appears, warning of an incoming patrol, forcing the family to flee. On the road, 4 masked figures ambush them, steal their horses and supplies, and ignore Tom's offer to take them to Charleston. The Mason family, the most dangerous people in the resistance, just got robbed by rednecks. Ben tracks the thieves to a farm run by the Picket family, led by patriarch Dwayne, a man who's never seen an alien because the invasion somehow missed his isolated property. His family survives by robbing travelers. Tom and the boys overtake them, but things go sideways when Dwayne's brother Gil, wounded during the scuffle, pulls a hidden shotgun from under his mattress, and the Pickets reclaim their guns. Dwayne orders the Masons to the basement and prepares to kill them to protect his family. His youngest daughter protests. Tom retrieves his weapon during the hesitation. The guns change hands again. Tom could execute these people. He doesn't. Because Tom Mason has read about every atrocity in human history and still believes people deserve a chance. In Charleston, Cochise carries a surviving President Hathaway into town. Cochise shows Hathaway, Marina, and Weaver the Vulm weapon and explains the Esfini plan, a worldwide energy field that will change Earth's atmosphere and kill every human. The weapon destroys the grid and allows Vulm reinforcements to arrive. The stakes are now literally planetary extinction. Lourdes changes Hathaway's IV, receives some kind words from the president, then goes to the room directly below his and shoots a Vulm weapon through the ceiling, killing him instantly. Minutes later, she's in the chapel, praying with alien bugs crawling across her face. Lourdes, sweet, faithful, praying Lourdes, who has been Anne's closest friend since season 1, is the mole. She's been the mole the entire time. The eye worms have been controlling her since God knows when, and nobody suspected the girl who says grace before dinner. The Masons leave the Picket house, but Tom spots Skitters and mechs heading toward the family's property. Despite everything Dwayne did to them, Tom goes back alone to warn them, because that's who he is. By the time he arrives, the family is gone. Skitters and mechs step out to corner him instead. Tom wakes up clean-shaven next to his dead wife. It's Christmas. His sons are normal kids. There are no aliens. He drives to work at his college, and every person he encounters is someone from the real timeline wearing a civilian disguise. Pope is a colleague, Lourdes works there, Maggie is around, and a homeless man who looks exactly like Weaver keeps banging on his car holding a sign that says, "The end is near." Everyone keeps mentioning someone named Anne who's trying to reach him. Everyone keeps asking about 4 cities: Boston, New York, Chicago, Jacksonville. Tom sees through the illusion. He looks in the mirror and sees his real self. Full beard, haunted eyes, a man who's been fighting aliens for 2 years. The dream fractures. He wakes up in an Esfini facility with alien technology attached to his face. Karen is standing over him. She wants to know which city the Vulm weapon will target. Tom tells her to go to hell. A rescue party bursts in shooting. Tom grabs Karen and demands to know where Anne and Alexis are. She says other overlords took them. Tom shoots her between the eyes. Then he wakes up in a Charleston hospital. Matt tells him he's been out for 2 days. Tom rushes to a planning room where Weaver asks him to explain the attack strategy. Tom approaches maps of Boston, New York, Chicago, and Jacksonville and realizes he's still inside the dream. The Esfini layered a dream within a dream to trick him into revealing the target. Tom laughs in Karen's face. "You must be really scared to be doing all this." Karen threatens to hurt Anne and Alexis. Tom says nothing. A history professor who once lectured about psychological warfare is now enduring it firsthand and refusing to break. Karen shows him 2 covered bodies. She claims it's Anne and Alexis. She claims she killed them. Tom flips out, but keeps his mouth shut. He grabs a skitter, jumps off a ledge, uses the alien to break his fall, and escapes into the wilderness, free from Karen, believing his family is dead, wandering through the woods until he finds a house that looks exactly like the one from his dream. He goes inside and cries. He sees his wife one last time. She cradles him, tells him she loves him, then tells him to leave. "There is nothing here for you anymore." Tom walks away with a giant Esfini ship looming in the background. The professor who used to study the past is now haunted by it. Tom sails back to Charleston on a stolen sailboat. He reunites with his sons and swears revenge on Karen for killing Anne and Alexis. He advises Weaver and Porter to target Boston, destroy the grid, and take out the Northeast's Esfini commander in one strike. Both men note Tom could use rest and might be bugged. Tom visits Pope and asks him to put him down if he has a probe. Pope agrees. That's their relationship now. Tom trusts Pope to kill him if necessary. These two have come a long way from join or die. Charleston is rocked by a massive explosion. The entire Vulm complex is destroyed. Cochise is critically injured. Lords planted the bomb. She plants another one in the vents, and it triggers cave-ins throughout the underground facility. Hal finds Maggie stunned in the armory. Tom finds Marina alive, but with damaged vision. Ben leads survivors above ground to dig toward trapped residents. Tom carries Lords from the rubble to the infirmary, not knowing she's the one who just tried to kill everyone he loves. Tom consoles Lourdes about Anne's death. She mentions that Anne died right back where they all started. Tom freezes. He never told Lourdes that Anne died in Boston. He never told anyone. The only way she could know that is if she was connected to Karen. Tom sets a trap, has Anthony roll over and train guns on Lourdes. Cornered, she pulls her Vulm weapon. Tom fights her for it. The gun fires. Lourdes drops unconscious. Hal and Maggie are trapped in a sealed room, running out of oxygen. Hal worries he planted the bomb before his eye worm was removed. They console each other for what might be the end. Matt and Ben find them through underground storm drains, locate a pipe, and force oxygen into the room. Tom uses Lourdes' Vulm weapon to blast open an escape route. The survivors emerge from underground. Tom explains that Lourdes was the real mole, the sweet, praying girl who held Jamil's hand while he died, who comforted Anne through her pregnancy, who stood beside the second mast through every battle. She was never really there. The bugs were driving the whole time. Pope, Weaver, and fighters ride a train toward Chicago, a decoy to draw Esphiny forces away from the real target. The Vulm weapon isn't anywhere near Chicago. It's on a freighter in Boston Harbor. Dr. Kadar, Tom, and Cochise fire the weapon at the Boston Esphiny Tower. It hits. For an agonizing minute, nothing happens. Esphiny aircraft approach, then the tower collapses. The defense grid across the sky begins to disappear, and a gigantic Vulm ship descends from orbit, landing on the ruins of Boston, flattening what's left of the city. The cavalry has arrived. For the first time since the invasion, the Esphiny retreat. The celebration lasts one night. Tom meets the Vulm commander, Cochise's father, who shakes hands respectfully and then tells Tom that human participation in the war will no longer be necessary. The Vulm will handle everything. The humans will be relocated to Brazil. Tom says, absolutely not. The commander doesn't care. Relocation begins today. Tom grabs the commander's shoulder. The Vulm flings him across the room. Guards restrain Tom, while Cochise shields Weaver from attacking them. Weaver returns to camp and orders everyone to pack up and move before the Vulm can round them up. He suffers a mild heart attack in his tent. He's been taking pills to keep his heart going and begs Jeanie to keep it secret. Cochise arrives with armed Vulm soldiers and orders everyone to prepare for transport. Hope wants to fight. Weaver orders surrender. They're outgunned by their own allies. Hope delivers the line that defines the entire Vulm arc. The Vulm have just done what the Esphiny never could. They've brought us to our knees. Tom pleads with the Vulm commander from inside the ship. Every planet the Vulm have liberated, the locals were grateful to be relocated. Tom tells him, humans are different. Allow us to fight for our freedom. The commander has never considered another approach. He's been a soldier his entire life. He says he'll think about it. The Vulm aren't evil. They just don't understand that some species would rather die fighting than live in a cage. Cochise leads the second mast to a pile of weapons, Vulm and human, and tells them they're free to go. Tom tells Cochise they're going to keep fighting and might get in the Vulm's way. Cochise says he expects nothing less. He hands Tom a Vulm rifle. They part as friends despite a fractured alliance. The Vulm commander watches the humans leave and tells his son they'll probably all die. Cochise says humans would be unable to endure captivity. The human spirit is like nothing we have ever encountered. The commander hopes his son is right. On the road south, Ben senses something approaching. Lourdes convulses in agony. An Esphiny hovercraft lands nearby. Karen walks out carrying a white flag. She survived the Boston Tower's destruction and wants a truce. The Esphiny have suffered a serious defeat but aren't finished, and she's confident the Vulm alliance will continue to deteriorate. She tells Tom she brought him a gift. Tom says he has one for her too. He shoots her in the chest. The Esphiny guards attack. The humans destroy them all. Karen lies on the ground dying. She tells Hal she only wanted to be with him. Her final words are, "I'm sorry." Maggie walks up, pulls out a gun, and puts 2 bullets in Karen without a flicker of hesitation. The girl who terrorized Hal, controlled Lourdes, tortured Tom, and served as the Esphiny's most dangerous weapon on Earth, dies on a dirt road with zero ceremony. Good riddance. Tom hears Anne's voice in the woods. He runs toward it and finds her alive. Karen lied about her death and brought Anne and Alexis as a peace offering for the truce Tom just rejected with a bullet. Anne and Tom embrace. Then he sees Alexis. She's aged into a 6-year-old. She speaks, "Hello, Daddy." The baby that was born a few weeks ago is now a child with alien DNA who grows faster than anything human. Nobody knows if she'll keep aging, if she's dangerous, or what she'll become. Pope comments that being back on the road feels like old times. Weaver agrees. The second mass is homeless again. No Charleston, no Vulm support, no safe haven. Just a group of survivors driving south with a half-alien child, a cured mole, and a history professor who's lost and found his family so many times he's stopped counting. Then Alexis walks up to Lords' cage, touches her face through the bars, and dozens of eye worms pour out of Lords' body into Alexis' hands. She crushes them into powder. Tom and Weaver watch in shock. Whatever Alexis is, she might be the most powerful being any of them have ever encountered. 22 days of marching. That's how long the second mass has been walking toward Charleston after losing the Vulm alliance, killing Karen, and getting their family back together. Tom, Anne, Ben, Matt, Weaver, Pope, everyone trudging up a hill on a bright sunny day with Alexis, who now looks like an 8-year-old despite being born weeks ago, walking beside them. They reach the crest and see Charleston below. For about 3 seconds, it feels like they might actually catch a break. Then Alexis stops and says, "We don't all have to die here." Alien warships drop from the sky. Giant spike-like structures slam into the ground and activate, laying electronic lattice fields around the group as mechs close in from every direction. The second mass is picked apart in seconds. Tom orders everyone to run, but another force field blocks them. A mech torches a line of fire between Tom and Anne, separating them. Tom watches Lyle hit a force field and essentially evaporate on contact. He screams at Matt to run and passes out. The family that just reunited is scattered across the map like pieces of a broken plate. 4 months later, everybody is in a different kind of hell. Tom is locked in solitary confinement inside an Espheni ghetto, a walled-off city ruin where survivors fight over alien food drops in the streets. He's been alone for 2 months, memorizing the Gettysburg Address on his wall and sneaking out through elevator shafts to gather intel on enemy patrols. The people in the ghetto have started calling his masked vigilante persona the Ghost, a history professor turned president turned guerrilla folk hero. The transformation never stops with this guy. Weaver is in a cell below Tom, losing his mind over the disappearance of Jeanie. Hal and Tector are in the ghetto, trying to disable the electric fence and failing. Pope has claimed an abandoned mansion and is hoarding food while watching Gilligan's Island on a stolen generator. Because even during the apocalypse, Pope lives exactly the way you'd expect Pope to live. Anne is in the woods running a guerrilla unit, drilling weapons assembly at ungodly hours and refusing to let her people sleep. Anthony begs her to ease up. The Vulm left 3 months ago to defend their families in another galaxy. Cochise and a handful of scouts are all that remain. Anne intercepts a truck she thinks carries confiscated ammo. It's full of terrified children instead. Matt is in an Espheni re-education camp, dressed in what amounts to alien Hitler youth uniforms, watching propaganda, being rewarded with food for reciting pro-Espheni drivel. He's playing along, pretending to be a model student while secretly organizing resistance among the kids. A 13-year-old running a rebellion inside a brainwashing facility. The apple didn't fall far from the tree, and Ben wakes up from a coma in a place called Chinatown, a repurposed mall turned peaceful commune with growing vegetables, playgrounds, and 0 alien attacks. Lords is fully recovered from her eye worms and running the place alongside a girl Ben doesn't recognize at first. Because Lexi, the baby who was 6 years old last season, is now a young woman with bright blonde hair, green eyes, and the serene confidence of someone who believes she can end the war through peace. She wears a necklace with intersecting circles meaning unity between humans, skitters, and Espheni. Ben asks where his guns are. Maggie shows him a powerless mech in the town square that was struck dead by lightning when it entered. Lexi's lightning. Whatever Alexis Glass Mason is becoming, she might be the most powerful entity on the planet, or the most dangerous, possibly both. Tom meets with Cochise secretly through the force field. The Espheni are building a power source that would let them control humanity permanently. The ghetto camps are worldwide. The human race is facing extinction. Tom returns to his cell through hidden passageways and tells Weaver he needs a distraction for his escape plan. He's getting the second mass back together. Weaver is in. Tom's ghost persona has become a symbol inside the ghetto. Someone spray paints his mask and goggles on a wall. The Espheni notice. They drop a harnessed man from their hovering mothership with an ultimatum. Food drops stop until the ghost is turned over. Tom responds by riding into the center of the ghetto, unmasking himself publicly and inviting the alien ship to take him aboard. Once inside, side, the overlord, speaking through a harnessed man, reveals something that reframes the entire invasion. The Asfeni plan to begin evolutionary transformations of select humans to combat a coming threat greater than either the Asfeni or the Vulm. There's something else out there, something the aliens who conquered Earth are afraid of. Tom pretends to accept terms while secretly memorizing the ship's overhead maps, including the location of a hidden hatch guards use for security. Dingon Bota, a hardened survivor and former physicist who builds Faraday suits to pass through the energy fences, becomes Tom's key ally for the escape plan. They need copper reinforcement and a way to destroy the energy tether outside the fence. Pope's massive food stash turns out to be a few cans of beans. The guy's been bluffing his reputation on scraps. Pope and Weaver discover an underground tunnel blocked by the fence that could serve as an escape route once the grid drops. In Chinatown, Ben catches Lexi meeting secretly with a hooded overlord in the forest. She claims she's building a bridge between species. Ben brings Maggie up to speed, and Maggie retrieves her hidden guns, grateful to have someone rational to talk to. Anne's group captures a Skitter in the woods, and Denny translates. The children are being taken to re-education camps to be led by the hybrid in the future. The hybrid is Lexi. The Asfeni's entire plan for humanity's next generation runs through Tom and Anne's daughter. The ghetto escape is one of the most intense sequences in the entire series. Tom rides his motorcycle through the streets as bait, luring Skitters at every turn before detonating the bike and retreating into the solitary building. Dingan was supposed to don the Faraday suit and scale the obelisk to destroy the energy tether, but a falling beam crushes his hand. Pope has to do it instead. The guy who has spent 4 seasons looking out for nobody but himself has to climb an electrified alien fence wearing a homemade suit that might not work, plant a bomb, and sever a power line with his bare hands. He drops the bomb on the way up, and everybody expects him to jump to freedom on the other side. Pope goes back for it. He climbs the fence again, wears out the suit, falls to the ground unconscious on the other side, wakes up, plants the bomb, and severs the tether himself. The fence drops. Pope just saved everyone. Let that sink in for a second. Tom lures the remaining Skitters through the building, activates charges, and brings the whole structure down on them, landing himself in the river below. Hal leads survivors through the tunnels, losing an elderly man in the process. Anne arrives at Chinatown with her guerrilla unit and is stunned to find her daughter is now a young woman running a peaceful commune. Cochise locates Matt at the re-education camp, and at that camp, Matt takes the fall for another kid's contraband, wire cutters hidden under a mattress, because that's what Masons do. They take the hit so someone else doesn't have to. Tom makes it back to the escaping survivors, thanks Pope for saving everyone, which might be the first genuine thank you Pope has ever received from Tom Mason, and comforts Hal on the lives lost. Weaver spots something following them in the distance, something that looks like a Skitter but moves differently. They brush it off. They shouldn't have. Tom, Weaver, and Cochise reach a Vulm hideout, where Cochise's second-in-command, Shaq, nearly shoots Tom on sight. Cochise confirms he found Matt's location. Tom leaves Hal in charge and heads to the re-education camp with Weaver and Cochise. Tom sneaks into a dormitory and immediately gets whistled on by dozens of brainwashed children. Alarms blare. Mira, Matt's friend and fellow rebel, leads them to Matt, who's being held at gunpoint by camp leader Kent. Tom beats Kent within an inch of his life. They grab Matt and run as mechs swarm the grounds. Mira blows her whistle as a distraction so Tom and Matt can escape. She disappears into the chaos. The kid who shared Matt's first kiss just sacrificed herself so a Mason could get away. Weaver finds the creature that's been following them. It's a Skitter, but it moves wrong. It attacks a regular Skitter to protect Weaver, and in the fight, he realizes who it is, Jean. His daughter has been mutated into a Skitter. The harness didn't just attach to her nervous system, it transformed her entire body. She saved her father one last time before the Skitter she attacked mortally wounds her. Weaver holds what used to be his daughter as she dies. The man who killed his youngest daughter trying to remove a harness now watches his oldest daughter die as the thing the harness turned her into. Weaver has now lost both his girls to the same alien technology. That's not a character arc, that's a punishment. In Chinatown, Anne confronts the captive overlord, the monk, who claims he's there voluntarily to help Lexi. Anne captures him despite Lexi's protests. The second mass is slowly reassembling, but the thing waiting in Chinatown isn't a reunion, it's a reckoning. Tom, Matt, Weaver, and Cochise reach the building where Hal's group was hiding, but everyone's gone, evacuated to escape incoming Skitter patrols. Hal's group hacked a downed Megamech's core to tap into Asfeni communications and mapped every patrol in the region. The area around Chinatown is suspiciously clear of any patrols. Nobody's attacking Lexi's compound. That should concern everyone a lot more than it does. Tom encounters two survivors, half-brothers Nick and Cooper, who claim to have escaped a human skitterization facility. Tom's instincts scream trap, but he's too exhausted to act on them. Nick takes Tom captive while Cooper empties a gun into the sleeping bags, which are empty because Weaver and Matt weren't in them. Nick confesses under pressure that he made a deal with the Espheni and sacrificed Cooper's wife and children to be skitterized to save himself. Cooper's calm fury ends with him shooting his brother. Then he turns the gun toward Tom, saying they have nothing left to live for. Weaver takes the kill shot from behind. Matt had the shot first but couldn't pull the trigger. He's 13 years old and already learning the difference between wanting to kill someone and being able to. Lexi is dying from a fever that would kill a normal human. Anne refuses to release the monk, so she beats him with a board to force answers out of him. Every blow Anne lands on the monk manifests as bruises on Ben's body. The Espheni connection between them means hurting the monk hurts her own son. Maggie stops Anne from killing Ben through the monk. The monk reveals a flower that can cure Lexi's fever. As Lexi recovers, the monk escapes with Lords' help. Lexi drops the bomb that ends the episode. The monk isn't just her teacher, he's her father. The Espheni engineered Alexis from the beginning. Anne was just the incubator. The second mass finally reassembles in Chinatown. Tom, Hal, Ben, Matt, Weaver, Pope, Maggie, Anne, everyone under one roof for the first time since the attack that scattered them. And the reunion lasts about 5 minutes before everything falls apart. Lexi has sealed herself inside an Espheni cocoon. Dr. Kadar compares it to a chrysalis. Cut the butterfly out, it dies. Tom wants to wait. Pope wants to kill Lexi before she emerges more powerful than before. Hal sides with Pope. Tom warns all of them. If anyone tries to harm Alexis, he will shoot them personally. Anne is desperate enough to let Kadar inject her with pharmaceutical drugs to recover suppressed memories of her time on the Espheni ship. The first dose takes her back to the night her son Sam died, a mech blasting through the window. The second dose, which Kadar warns might not let her wake up, takes her back to the mothership, where Karen was nursing Alexis while an alien umbilical cord fed into Anne's womb. Karen told Anne she was alive only to nourish the baby. After that, the aliens would have no use for her. Anne flatlines in Kadar's office. Tom and Kadar can't wake her up. Inside her mind, Alexis appears. Not the young woman in the cocoon, but the little girl she used to be. She shows Anne a memory of choosing her mother over Karen. I will always choose family. She presses her hand to Anne's cheek and tells her to wake up. Anne wakes up and runs to the cocoon. She presses her hand against it, despite it burning hot enough to have injured Weaver earlier. Alexis's hand presses against the wall from inside, matching her mother's, her eyes open. Whatever emerges from that cocoon is going to change everything. And nobody, not Tom, not Anne, not the Espheni, not even Lexi herself, knows which side she'll choose. Alexis emerges from the cocoon in a blinding white light. Her eyes are green now. Anne reaches for her daughter, hoping for the girl who said, "I will always choose family," inside her vision. Instead, Lexi looks at her mother and says, "Not this family." She walks into the crowd, and every gun in Chinatown points at her. Lords, sweet, faithful, twice-possessed Lords, who has been Anne's closest friend since the first season, runs to Lexi's side and begs her to set her free. Lexi touches Lords' cheek, freezes everyone in place with telekinesis, forces Pope to aim his gun at someone else, and kills Lords. Just like that, then she walks away, and everyone unfreezes. The girl who survived eye worms, who held Jamil's hand while parasites crawled out of his mouth, who was the mole without ever knowing it, who was finally cured by a 6-year-old's touch, murdered by that same child grown into something nobody can control. Lourdes is laid to rest. Everyone says goodbye to one of the longest surviving members of the second mass. Tom and Anne argue about whether Lexi can be saved. Dr. Kadar explains that Lexi's human and Espheni DNA have combined into something entirely new. She's not half human or half alien, she's a completely unknown species. The Espheni launch a full assault on Chinatown. Tom devises a plan to lure mechs into a kill zone using Chinese paper lanterns filled with thermite. Maggie lights the fuse, and the first wave of mechs is incinerated. But a ruptured gas main explodes, killing dozens of survivors. Pope searches the wreckage for Sarah and finds her crying because fighting Skitters wasn't as fun as he promised. Denny and Dingan discover Lexi's disciples kneeling in the street, believing the Espheni will spare them if they show no resistance. The mechs gun every single one of them down without slowing. So much for peace. Dr. Kadar takes a piece of glass through his side during the explosion. Anne can't save him. His last words to Tom are to save Alexis and never let her go. Tector, the Marine who hid his rank because he blamed himself for getting his squad killed, takes Tom's sniper position, knocks Tom unconscious with a wrench to stop him from sacrificing himself, fires at Overlord Scorch, misses, and when a Skitter approaches him on the collapsed building, starts laughing because he's strapped with explosives. He detonates. Scorch mistakes Tector's burned body for Tom Mason. The man who spent 3 seasons trying to make up for failing his squad just gave his life so the resistance could survive. That's redemption. Ugly, violent, final redemption. Maggie lies buried under debris. Ben went to find Lexi and hasn't returned. The survivors crawl out of the fallout shelter. Matt is frantic to find Tom. Pope says Tom is dead, and Matt tackles him, punching the man who is 3 times his size. Weaver pulls Matt off and helps him search. They find Tom alive under the rubble, buried next to the wrench Tector used to save his life. Maggie is paralyzed from the neck down. Anne says she's dying and there's nothing she can do. Hal begs for options. The only one is insane. Transplant spikes from Denny into Maggie's spine. The alien technology that healed Ben's body might heal Maggie's, but the procedure could kill both of them. Maggie refuses the surgery and asks Hal to let her go. Hal tells Anne that Maggie agreed. He lied. He's making the choice to save her life against her wishes because he'd rather have her hate him alive than love him dead. Denny's spike fluid fails. Ben offers his own spikes instead. Cochise removes 3 of Ben's spikes, and Anne inserts them into Maggie's neck. Both their spikes glow simultaneously, convulse 4 times, then go still. Maggie wakes up healed, slaps Hal for betraying her, then kisses him for saving her. The spikes worked, but they also created a connection between Ben and Maggie that neither of them asked for, and nobody fully understands. Tom and Dingon discover the buried beamer, the Asfini ship Cochise shot down earlier. Tom sticks his arm inside a hatch and something bites him. Worm-like things crawl under his skin before Dingon cuts them out with a scalpel. They discover a countdown panel inside and realize a missile is about to fire. It launches through the ground, creating an exit hole. Tom reunites with his family. Ben wakes up with Lexi standing over him. She takes him to a warehouse where humans in various stages of mutation are laid out on the floor. The Asfini skitterization process. Lexi calls it evolution. Ben calls it what it is, turning people into monsters. Lexi tries to kill him. Ben tells her she can turn him into a slave because the Asfini already did that once, and he survived. She lets him go. He returns to the second mass and tells Anne that Lexi has gone fully to the Asfini side. Anne refuses to accept it. A mother's hope is the last thing to die in any apocalypse. That night, Hal and Tom climb the rubble and see green flashes coming from the moon, causing reactions in the buried beamer. Whatever the Asfini are powering, the source isn't on Earth. It's up there. Cochise realizes what the green flashes mean. The Asfini power core that the Vulm have searched the entire planet for is on the moon. It powers their entire war machine globally. Tom's plan is beautifully insane. Use the damaged beamer to fly to the moon, hitch a ride on the power core's homing beacon, land at the base, plant a bomb, blow the core, and fly home. Everyone points out that they don't know how to fly the ship, access its systems, or survive in space. Tom doesn't care. Taking out Asfini camps one by one costs lives they can't afford. Destroy the power core, and every piece of alien technology on Earth goes dark at once. Ben teaches Maggie to use her new spike abilities. They jump off buildings together. The shared spikes create a connection that lets her feel what he feels. They kiss. Hal sees, says nothing, walks away. The love triangle nobody asked for just became a tactical liability. Tom and the group find the Vulm supply cache, but walk into a trap set by Mira, Matt's former friend from the re-education camp, now fully harnessed and working for the Asfini. Matt had untied her out of mercy. She blew her whistle and summoned beamers. Kent, the camp leader, traps Tom in a burning container. Anne saves him. Tom shoots Kent, who reveals with his dying breath that he gave his own mother to the Asfini. The people humans become under alien influence are sometimes worse than the aliens themselves. Tom proposes to Anne. Weaver marries them the next day. Because if you're about to fly to the moon on a stolen alien ship to blow up a power core with a homemade bomb, you might as well get married first. Shaq figures out how to use Mira's whistle to engage the buried beamer's homing signal. The ship flies itself out of the ground. Tom declares, "We choose to go to the moon." Everyone wants on the moon mission. Tom tries to dictate who goes and gets outvoted by his own militia. They hold a drawing, 2 names pulled at random. Ben is picked first. Tom rigs the second draw to make sure he goes with his son, because Tom Mason will always find a way to be wherever his children are, even if that's a suicide mission to the moon.
A radio message in Spanish on frequency 1776, American Independence, delivers devastating news. Every Esfeni ghetto on Earth is being emptied. Spain, Italy, Morocco, people are being processed. The message ends with a man saying there is no chance of winning, and they are the last humans on the planet. Tom refuses to hide. He'd rather go down fighting. The Vulm communicator used to hack the beamer gets destroyed by an Esfeni defense mechanism. Cochise can't go on the mission. The ship will reject all Vulm presence. They have to fly it manually above the atmosphere and hope the homing beacon locks on automatically. Through trial and error, Tom and Dingan figure out thrust and nearly kill Cochise in the process. Matt found pitch and yaw earlier. They can't find roll but decide it doesn't matter. They just need to get above the atmosphere. Hal refuses to forgive Ben for kissing Maggie until the drawing picks Ben's name, and Hal realizes he might never see his brother again. On the ship, Hal tells Ben he forgives him. Maggie can't be told who to love. Ben admits he has real feelings for her. Hal doesn't care anymore. Some things are bigger than jealousy when your brother might die on the moon. Lexi wakes from a nightmare about Ben being skitterized. The monk continues training her powers. She can dematerialize trees and control gravity. She overhears the Esfeni planning to kill her and dematerializes the monk, breaking free. As the second mass prepares for launch, Esfeni beamers attack Chinatown. Lexi appears from behind the rubble and destroys every single one of them. She's come home. She tells her stunned parents she made a terrible mistake trusting the Esfeni and wants to help destroy them. Tom refuses to listen to Lexi. Pope tries to shoot her. She stops the bullet with telekinesis. Weaver convinces Anne to give Lexi a chance. The argument that wins Tom over is practical, not emotional. Lexi can pilot the beamer, defend against threats, and actually get them to the moon alive. Ben gets swapped out. Tom and Lexi launch together. The ship has a hairline fracture in the hull that's draining life support power faster than they can afford. They won't have enough battery to make it home. Lexi suggests a cocoon, Esfeni stasis technology that can protect them with life support shut off. Tom agrees, as Lexi covers him in oxygen-rich webbing. She tells him to breathe. He points out that's what she told Lords before murdering her. She blasts the webbing down his throat. Tom wakes up to Anne, breaking the cocoon. The mission succeeded. Lexi docked with the power core, set the bomb, flew them home. Lexi's Esfeni DNA was destroyed by radiation. She's fully human now. Everyone forgives her. Hal led a successful attack on Scorch's base with 0 casualties. It's perfect. Too perfect. Tom realizes Dr. Kadar is alive in this version of reality, and Kadar is dead. Lexi doesn't know that, because she wasn't there when he died. Tom is still in the cocoon. The entire thing is a dream Lexi created because she's terrified of facing reality. She's afraid her family will never forgive her for killing Lords. She's hiding behind the faces of Weaver, her brothers, and Lords herself because she can't face Tom directly. Tom finds Lexi in the dream and tells her he understands. She's not a scared little girl hiding from the world. She is a scared little girl hiding from the world. They have to wake up and finish the mission. Lexi says she can't forgive herself. Tom tells her that humans break bread together despite their differences, and that's what makes them special. He can't fully forgive her yet, but he's willing to try. They concentrate together, break out of the dream, and wake up in the cocoon on the beamer. Lexi has been sleeping on Tom's shoulder, a father and the daughter he never got to raise, sharing their first real moment together in a cocoon on a spaceship heading to the moon. The bomb is damaged, leaking fluid on the floor. Neither of them notices. The bomb casings cracked from the temperature changes during the hull breach. They have no explosive. Tom turns to Lexi's powers, but she explains they work by manipulating natural forces, gravity, energy, and the vacuum of space gives her nothing to work with. The moon's gravity won't be enough either. Tom's backup plan: crash Scorch's ship into the power core and use it as the bomb. They board the massive Esfeni vessel and find Mira, now harnessed and speaking for Scorch. The overlord attacks, knocks Tom down, and activates Lexi's necklace, which the monk gave her not as a symbol of peace, but as a control device. Scorch burns a line down Lexi's face. Tom injects him with the Vulm poison Hal gave him as insurance. Scorch staggers, and Tom drives the rest of the poison into the overlord's eye, killing him. But Scorch manages to destroy the ship's autopilot wire before dying. Lexi can still pilot the ship manually, but that means she can't leave. She tells Tom to get back to their beamer. When he hesitates, she says the only way to win is to divide and conquer. He has to trust her. Tom returns to the beamer and destroys the tractor beam. Lexi contacts him through the cocoon telepathically. She appears in a vision of empty Chinatown. Tom orders her not to sacrifice herself. She tells him there's no time. If they don't destroy the power core, everything he loves will be lost. Tom says, "Not everyone." Lexi thanks him for showing her what it means to be human and to love. She says, "Goodbye, Daddy." They hug one last time. She cuts the connection.
In Chinatown, the Asfeni drop a skitterization bomb. Fog rolls through camp carrying creatures that latch onto humans and begin transforming them. Elise is taken. Dingan is dragged away. Hope and Sarah are trapped. Matt and Weaver are sealed in a room filling with fog. Anne grabs a flamethrower and discovers fire burns the fog away. She rescues Matt and Weaver. Maggie and Ben use their shared spike abilities to yank Hal out of the fog with a makeshift harness. Pope bites through a creature's tentacle to save Dingan from being skitterized. Literally bites through alien flesh with his teeth. Sarah returns in a hot-wired truck just in time to shoot the creatures off Pope and Dingan. When Pope hesitates to say thank you, she shoots another creature that lunges at him. He thanks her immediately. In space, an Asfeni beamer squadron closes in on Tom's defenseless ship. Cannon fire rips through them. Washak Cha'ab, Cochise' father, has returned with the Vulm fleet. He destroys the squadron. Lexi folds her hands and flies Scorch's ship directly into the power core. The explosion is visible from Earth. Tom watches on the beamer's screen as his daughter's ship disintegrates. "You did it, baby." The shockwave sends Tom's beamer spinning into deep space. He can't control it. The Vulm can't reach him. The temperature drops. Tom sits alone, hugging himself, reading his book as his ship drifts further from Earth. The next morning, the fog is gone. The creatures are dead. Everyone who survived emerges to see part of the moon glowing green. Tom destroyed the power core. Every Asfeni ghetto on Earth is now powerless. Every human not yet skitterized is free. The war machine is dead. Cochise reports that the Vulm have returned, but they lost Tom. Matt is devastated. Anne says Tom will find his way home. Hal reminds everyone, the power core is destroyed. They can take the fight to the Asfeni now and finish what Tom started. Tom wakes up in what looks like his old bedroom. A family photo on the nightstand is holographic. Someone communicates with him through old radio broadcasts. He opens the curtains and discovers he's on a spaceship. An alien figure appears in the doorway and says, "Tom Mason, it's about time." Tom seems to recognize it and says, "I had no idea it was so beautiful." The history professor who started this story grading papers in a Boston classroom is now floating through deep space, alone, staring at an alien he's never seen before, farther from home than any human has ever been. And somehow, despite everything, the invasions, the betrayals, the deaths, the impossible choices, he's still standing, still breathing, still refusing to give up. Whatever comes next, Tom Mason will face it the same way he's faced everything else. Like a man who read about heroes his whole life and then became one. Tom Mason died in space. His beamer was freezing, drifting, powerless. And then something brought him back. He wakes up in what looks like his old Boston bedroom, face to face with his dead wife Rebecca. Except, it's not Rebecca, it's the Dornia, an ancient alien race that turns out to be what the Skitters were before the Asfeni enslaved them. They've been watching Tom since the moon mission, and they have a message for him delivered through the face of the woman he loved most. "Find your warrior," Rebecca tells him. "You have to get more than mad. You must tap into your primal rage, even if it costs you." Then water crashes through the windows, submerges him, and Tom washes up on Earth 2 days' walk from the second mass. Nobody can explain how he survived. Anne thinks he hallucinated. Ben thinks the beamer's autopilot brought him home. Tom doesn't care about the how. He cares about the what comes next. He addresses the second mass with a speech that would have been unrecognizable coming from the man who gave history lectures 5 years ago. It's time for overkill. 3 strike teams fan out to neutralize nearby Asfeni tech. Tom's group walks into a trap, and when a Skitter kills a fighter named Scotty, Tom uses the dead man's body as bait to lure the aliens toward a bomb. The remote fails. Bravo team saves them. The professor who once refused to shoot harnessed children is now using corpses as tactical decoys. Find your warrior indeed. Denny, Ben's battle partner, the de-harnessed girl who's fought beside him since season 3, is ripped in half by Skitters in front of Anthony, just torn apart like paper. Anthony breaks. The rage that's been building in him since the invasion started finally cracks something fundamental inside the man, and from this point forward, he's not the same person. Tom finds a nearby overlord hiding in a school, talks to him through Ben, and when the overlord threatens leverage through Ben's spikes, Tom shoots him in the head, then shoots him again, and again. The history professor who used to capture aliens alive for questioning now executes them on sight. At Denny's funeral pyre, something stings Tom on the back of his neck. The bug has Skitter legs, Asfeni arms, black hornet wings, and human eyes. The Dornia are watching. Leaderless skitters attack the camp in feral waves for over a week. The second mass's entire food supply gets destroyed. People are starving. Anthony tortures a captured skitter while Tom watches and does nothing. Weaver has to step in and shoot the creature because Tom's warrior mentality has pushed him past the line where he'd normally intervene. Anne builds a microscope from scrap and examines the bug that stung Tom. It's a hybrid creature with human eyes that stares at Tom before flying away to join a swarm. Whatever the Dornia are, they're engineering something. Sarah gets caught in leftover Espheni fog and is eaten alive by the hybrid bugs, while Pope runs for help. Tom refuses to divert from a mission to save her, prioritizing the destruction of Espheni hatchlings over one life. Pope returns to find Sarah's body consumed. The man who cooked skitters to feed starving people, who climbed an electrified fence to free a ghetto, who came back for a bomb he could have left behind. That man just lost the only person who made him feel human, and he blames Tom Mason for every second of it. Cochise identifies the bugs as Dornia, the original species the skitters were created from. They're not a new enemy, they're the oldest one, and they want the Espheni destroyed as badly as humanity does. Anthony executes their captive overlord against orders, destroying their only intelligence source. Anne diagnoses him with PTSD and pulls his weapon. The cracks in the second mass aren't coming from outside anymore, they're coming from within. Pope snaps. He builds a shrine for Sarah, recruits disgruntled fighters, and launches a full Hate Mason campaign. Anthony joins him. When Tom banishes Pope from the second mass, Pope kidnaps Hal as bait. Cochise's single kidney is failing. His father donates an organ, and Anne performs the transplant. Cochise survives. Washchak Cha'ab, the Vulm commander who once tried to relocate humanity to Brazil, who returned at the last second to save Tom during the moon mission, dies on the operating table. Anne and Cochise undergo the Vulm silence ceremony together. Anne sees Lexi. Cochise sees his father. Both find peace with losses they've been carrying for years. Tom has another Dornia vision. Rebecca warns him that Hal has been taken. Tom goes to rescue his son, and Weaver tells him to be careful. The war has changed people, Weaver says. Tom assumes he means Pope. I was talking about you, Weaver replies. Pope cuts Hal to make Tom hear his son scream over the radio. Isabella, a woman Pope recruited as a nurse who turns out to have a conscience, patches Hal up and eventually helps him escape. Tom shoots Pope in the face, but only grazes his cheek. A giant hornet grabs Tom and flies him away before he can finish the job. Pope survives, again, because Pope is a cockroach in human form. Tom wakes up in a farmhouse in North Carolina that the war never touched. A family has been hiding here the entire invasion. He cries at dinner because he's forgotten what peace feels like. The history professor who became a warrior can't handle a quiet meal without breaking down. That's what 5 years of alien war does to a person. Maggie has Cochise remove Ben's spikes from her body, ending the connection and the love triangle in one painful procedure. Ben is devastated. I gave you part of me and you threw them in the trash. Hal finds Tom and brings him back to the second mass. The group discovers an Espheni transmitter that could turn the tide. They're heading to Washington, D.C. The second mass finds a functioning military base run by Captain Katie Marshall, an old flame of Weavers. It has everything they need: vehicles, weapons, soldiers. It also has paranoia. Marshall is convinced the second mass are Espheni collaborators. Her soldiers torture Ben, ripping out one of his spikes with pliers. She puts Tom, Ben, and Hal on trial for treason. The sentence is death. An overlord has been watching the base the entire time. Weaver discovers Marshall has been meeting with an overlord in the woods. He kills the alien and exposes her. Turns out Marshall is an Espheni clone. The real Marshall died 6 weeks ago. The court-martial is a sham, run by an alien puppet. Tom rallies the 14th Virginia to join the second mass. Pope infiltrates the base during the chaos, kills 2 soldiers, but Anthony, who's been riding with Pope since his betrayal, shields Anne from a bullet and switches sides. Tom collapses a building onto Pope's group, apparently killing him. Then discovers something earth-shattering using an Espheni communication device. The overlords bow to a higher being. An Espheni queen exists. Cochise is stunned. I never thought it possible. The overlords aren't the top of the food chain. There's something above them, and it's coming to Earth. The Dornia give Tom a bioweapon, something powerful enough to kill the Queen and end the war. Marty, the grief-stricken father Weaver recruited, turns out to be a biochemist and helps Anne modify the weapon so it only kills Espheni and not humans. A clone of Lexi appears and nearly strangles Tom before Ben throws the Dornia weapon at her.
killing her. Another Espheni trick, another face of someone Tom loved used as a weapon against him. But the clone reveals that the Queen is coming and the Espheni have been to Earth before. Ben finds the Queen's location in the Espheni shadow plane, at the foot of the giant. Tom looks at a map of DC and realizes it means the Lincoln Memorial. A swarm of Black Hornets descends on the base as the 2nd Mass and 14th Virginia prepare to march on Washington. An older Matt Mason narrates a voiceover montage mirroring the pilot episode. The 2nd Mass rides into Washington, D.C. with every militia they've gathered along the way. The enemy has walled off the Lincoln Memorial. Lieutenant Wolf knows underground tunnels from growing up in D.C. and leads them beneath the city. They navigate through fields of Espheni eggs, baby aliens that are violently hostile at birth. One hatches and kills a fighter. Wolf fires a grenade into a nest. The blast separates Tom from the group, kills Wolf, and injures Anne badly. Tom emerges alone to face the Espheni Queen. She pins him to a wall with acidic spit and tells him why humanity deserves extinction. The Espheni came to Earth 1,500 years ago. They wanted the planet, the only habitable world in the galaxy. The Queen sent her daughter to lead the invasion. Humanity's primitive ancestors killed every last one of them and ate their flesh to gain their strength. This entire invasion, every death, every harnessed child, every destroyed city, is revenge for something that happened 15 centuries ago. The Queen starts drinking Tom's blood. Tom reaches the Dornia weapon and does the only thing left. He lets it attach to his body, poisoning his own blood. The Queen drinks the poisoned blood and disintegrates, and with her, every Hornet, every Skitter, every Overlord, every Espheni creation on Earth dies simultaneously. The sky clears, the war is over. Anne dies from her injuries. Tom carries her to the shore and begs the Dornia to save her and their unborn child. The Dornia take Anne underwater. Pope appears behind Tom with a gun, alive because Pope is always alive. But he can't pull the trigger. The rage is gone. The war is over and there's nothing left to hate. Pope sits down on the beach and dies. Not from a bullet, not from an alien, from the simple fact that a man built entirely out of anger has nothing left to burn. The Dornia return Anne, alive, still pregnant. We cut to Matt writing the final chapter of a book called Last of the World War. Tom reads it and says it's great. Everyone is preparing for Tom's speech, wearing galaxy pins representing the new Vulm alliance. And in one final montage, we see what became of everyone who survived. Matt is his father's son, probably a future history professor. Hal and Maggie got married. Ben works with the Vulm delegation alongside Cochise and Shaq, Spikes and all, an intellectual who found his place between two species. Weaver watches the younger generation with pride, saluting the people who stood beside him. Dingon, Anthony, all of them. Anne is alive with a baby on the way. And Tom Mason, the history professor who became a soldier, then a president, then a vigilante, then a warrior, then a man who flew to the moon, lost his daughter, poisoned his own blood to kill a queen, and somehow found his way home, gives his final speech to the survivors of the human race. As the camera pulls back from Tom's face, rising above the crowd, above the rebuilt world, above the planet itself, we see Orion's belt hanging in the sky with a single message: we are not alone out there. 5 seasons, 52 episodes. A history professor who started this story teaching bored college kids about dead revolutions and ended it saving the entire human species from extinction with poisoned blood and a borrowed alien weapon. Every scar on his body tells the story of a choice he made: to fight when running was smarter, to trust when suspicion was safer, to forgive when revenge was easier. Tom Mason didn't survive because he was the strongest or the smartest or the luckiest. He survived because he never stopped believing that the people standing next to him were worth dying for. And in the end, they proved him right. Anyway, feel free to click on the video on your screen to watch another one of our videos. Thanks for watching. See you!